Hello, everybody. Welcome. And it is Friday. You know what that means. It's Keith. I think this is a first. You were muted.
I was muted.
You were muted.
Front
Oh,
office
no.
Friday.
We needed a redo. Stop the
man.
show. Oh, the
Brutal.
perils of live shows.
Major fail on my part. I blew it.
I hope that's not a bad omen for how the rest of the show is going to go.
I muted it because I got a phone call right as we were starting, and I thought it was something, and it wasn't. It was the stupid spam call. But yeah, we'll blame it on them, stupid spammers.
That guy, what's his name? Spam Likely. He's so annoying.
Yeah,
he's so annoying.
Something like that. Anyway, it's Front Office Friday. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's do this.
I have a ton of energy today. Just so you know, I am fired up.
Okay, well then let's keep that energy going because we can actually start with this. We
have an early trade to announce.
And it is indeed an early trade. It's not even officially trade season yet. And bizarrely, one of the teams that's in the finals just made a trade, the Denver Nuggets and the Oklahoma City Thunder. It is the Thunder picking up a 2029 first. There are protections on it. I haven't seen what the protections are, but we'll talk about that in just a second.
Yeah, they've not, those are not out there yet.
Which is extremely important for evaluating this trade. But and then on the Denver side, they're picking up a pair of second-round picks and a late first, or what projects to be a late first, but that'll be coming next year. They get a second rounder this year, a second rounder next year, and a late first next year. The Thunder getting a 2029 first-round pick, but there are protections on that pick. We'll have to wait and see exactly what those protections are. Kate, this is one of those trades that, number one, my first thought was, this is like 5 years from now, we're going to be saying, wait, how did the Thunder get that pick? Right? Like that's going to be where we're at 5 years from now. But this is also a move that I think just makes a lot of sense for both sides. Denver needing cost-controlled contracts now while they're trying to win, and 2 second-round picks, 1 late first. Essentially, I'm looking at this as they got themselves 3 shots at finding a rotation player. If they find 1 rotation player with those 3 picks, they're feeling pretty good. If they find 2, great, they're over the moon.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then for the Thunder, they have more picks than they can use. So why not kick the can down the road and perhaps get a pick that's significantly better than any of the 3 they gave up? So I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's like a kind of like a reverse like consolidation trade in a way. Normally you consolidate to like move up right away in the draft. This is like moving backwards, right? A little bit. So I think that is one thing that is kind of interesting. But with this one, the pick, the 24 first rounder that the Nuggets are going to get, it is going to be the worst of OKC, Houston, the Clippers, and the Jazz. And the Jazz and Houston picks, if somehow miraculously, these are all ended up being super high picks, which I don't think they will be. The Houston pick is already protected 5 through 30, and the Jazz, 1 through 4, and the Jazz pick is protected 1 through 10. So that's probably not likely to come into play, for the most part. So so they're gonna get a but first out of this, and they ended up giving up 1 pick late, which if you're OKC, you're betting by 2029, the Jokic, Murray, Porter core, I guess, Gordon, that'll all probably broken up and moved along.
Yeah, and that's what you're hoping for. And again, that's where the pick protections come in. If this winds up being like a top 3 protection, you're going, wow, okay, the Thunder could really have something here. If it comes back, if it's like top 18 protected, then you're like, well, why do they do this? So those protections are going to be extremely important on this pick. Yeah. But when you mention the teams that that you're seeing them get the worst of that, the Nuggets getting the worst of those teams. We talk about Houston. We talk about, I look at it as probably going to be the Clippers pick, but there's potential there. And it obviously depends on maybe James Harden goes to Houston, but there's potential there for this pick, some upside for it to maybe be somewhere in the teens if the Clippers have a lot of injuries and things like that. And Houston doesn't, get going. Utah doesn't get going just yet. maybe there's some upside there for the pick to be in the teens, but that's probably best case scenario for Denver.
Yeah, and the on the protections part of it, yeah, I don't want to spend a ton of time on it because, like we said, we don't already know. But Denver already owes OKC a top 5 protected pick. The earliest it could convey is in 2027, because they have to deliver a pick to the Magic first, and then there are conditions that could roll that back and roll that back. So we'll see. My guess is that instead of protections, I wouldn't be surprised if this turns more into a conditions type thing on, hey, if this doesn't go, this is what happens, and that sort of thing, because that 2027 pick is protected already through 2029. So yeah, it's that is a thing that's going to have to get worked around, but those things often get rewritten as teams make trades. Like this, we've seen teams can redo protections on trades. So my guess is we're not going to have the final on this for a little bit yet.
Yeah, and just to put a bow on this, can you recall a team that is in the finals? Like, we're in the thick of it. It's 2-1 making a trade like this?
Yeah, no, because the only thing, if you're still playing, the only thing you can trade is draft picks. You can't trade players until your season is over. Once your season's over, you can go into trading players as soon as your season's over.
Mm-hmm.
As long as your season's still going, you can trade draft picks. Those are always fair game, and that's all that's moving hands here right now. As far as we know, this trade is draft picks. I've seen a couple people say, "Why would OKC do this?" They just can't roster all these guys. They are basically out of roster spots. They've got kind of sort of one roster spot left, open right now going into next season, and they've got a first round pick already in this coming draft. To add 4 more guys potentially is that's crazy. They weren't going to open up 4 roster spots. So this is a way for them to kind of rebalance things a little bit, kind of kick the can down the road and go that way. So fun trade. Like to your point, yeah, we're going to be. Where did OKC get this pick from Denver again? And we're going to be going through all that stuff later, in the coming years here down the line. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think this also speaks to the reality of the new CBA, where these late firsts and early seconds are going to become very valuable. Teams are going to need these cost-controlled contracts, and so I think this is Denver kind of getting ahead of the game a little bit, in terms of, hey, we know we've got an expensive team. We need guys who can be role players on cost-controlled deals, and that's exactly what you can get early in the second round, late in the first round. So I think those picks are going to only become more and more valuable here as we get into this new collective bargaining agreement. But like I said, if I'm looking at this from Denver, if you get out of those 3 picks, if you get 1 rotation player, you did pretty well. I mean, these are not guaranteed hits here at all, but you get 1 rotation player, you did pretty well. If you get 2 out of those 3 picks, you're over the moon. You did a fantastic job. So that's going to be the key for the Denver side in terms of value. It's, can you get at least 1 rotation player out of those 3 picks?
Yeah, and for the Nuggets, they're big. The main guy they have to replace likely next season, it looks like, will probably be Bruce Brown, because he's probably going to be priced out. They can't offer him more than maybe the taxpayer mid-level, and that's probably even pushing it, because they're going to be right up near that super tax amount, or just re-signing him to a deal that's way under what he could get, even the non-taxpayer MLE from another team. So that becomes the other challenge. So I think we're in a spot where we're going to see Denver kind of recycle a little bit through their rotation. Christian Brown's already in there. He'll be a major rotation piece. They're hopeful Peyton Watson, last year's other first rounder, can step in and play minutes next year. So this is all part of the Nuggets trying to extend this winning window by having folks in the folks at the back end of the roster that are talented can step in and play.
All right, let's get into one of our super chat questions. Syed said, what is Christian Wood's market value? LA native, is he a Laker? I'm looking at him as kind of a non-taxpayer, or a full, whatever terminology you want to use, mid-level exception type guy. I think that's which is right about what his contract was for this past season. You got to be careful with what you're putting around. Not a great defensive player or anything, but he can get in there and put up points, and as a stretch big, that's going to have some value. So I'm thinking somewhere the ceiling is probably a full mid-level, and the floor is probably like somewhere starting around 9 million. That's my guess.
Yeah, I'm guessing he'll still get full MLE
I think so too.
offers from somebody, or he'll be part of a sign and trade where Dallas sends him out and they go get somebody. It's important to know, and I'm just going to make this super simple for people because I know everybody's getting confused, and so are we, on all the new what can you do, can't you do when you're a tax team and all these things. We're in a spot, but I think what we're trying to sort through and figure out, I think the easiest way to note this is the taxpayer MLE of 5 million. If you're above the super tax, you can't use that. That is the only thing that comes into play right now. Being able to sign and trade players away, being able to aggregate players together in a trade, all those things, that's a next year thing. So you've got kind of 1 year of semi-normal amounts. Outside, there's dollar penalty amounts, actual penalties that will come in, but that's a different thing entirely. So we're in a spot where it's these are the big things to know with this. So Dallas could put Christian Wood into a sign and trade where they send him out to bring somebody in, because that's that could get him paid 15 million a year or something like that if he was involved in a deal like that to bring in talent. No, but I mean, here I could make the cheap joke, right? Yeah, they're going to put him in a sign and trade for LeBron, right? I'm not going to do that because that's not who I am. But we already covered the LeBron thing in depth. But I think, if it's an outright signing, it's the mid-level amount. That's none of the cap space teams I think are going to be all over trying to sign Christian Wood. He doesn't necessarily make sense with any of them for anything more, and that's kind of a fall, because I think we thought going into this season he was going to come away as a $20 million player somewhere, if not just re-signing with the Mavs.
What happened is that? How much of that is Christian Wood? How much? Because I've seen both arguments. I've seen it's Christian Wood. I've seen it's the Mavs coaching staff didn't use him correctly. Where do you fall?
Yeah, probably a little bit of both. I think his own play fell off from a very hot start to the season. I don't think he adapted super well to coming off the bench. And I think the Mavs at times misused him. I think they tried to play him at the 4 way too much. And I think he's definitely a 5. So that's a challenge. So Saeed says Christian Wood is a good defender. No, he is not a good defender. He's not a good defender at all. He can block shots occasionally as a help guy.
He's got super long arms,
but he's not. He's not a good defender. He gets blown by in pick and roll. He loses his man quite often away from the ball. So a little messy on that end of the floor.
Case in point, just to give you the numbers behind it, according to Cleaning the Glass, Christian Wood on the defensive side of the floor was in the 25th percentile at his position. That is not very much not good. 57th percentile on the offensive end. So I mean, solid there, right, offensively, but the defense is not good.
Yeah, he's really, really good offensive player, and I think better than what he even showed in Dallas, because he can score, he can rebound, he can shoot too, he can step out and hit jump shots. So but I mean mid level is probably what he's looking at, and then I think that's probably a short term mid level signing. Let's pick the right place for a year, and then let's try to get back on track here and get back into maybe a bigger contract a year from now.
What's the best place for him?
Oh, that's a good question.
Right. I mean, he's one of those guys who could just pop up on a random team somewhere that you weren't expecting, and like, hey, Christian Wood goes to, I don't know, whatever, the Blazers or something for the non-taxpayer, but trying to find the right fit, because so many teams look to their center to be a rim protector, to be a defensive presence. Sure. That's not really what he is. So where do you put him?
This one might seem a little odd. And he was already there once, but Philadelphia could make some sense. I think as Embiid's backup, the challenge is he going to be okay with being a backup, right? That's the thing. Phoenix as a depth option, especially if they moved on from Ayton, he becomes kind of interesting there. It does get kind of rough pretty quick.
Speaking of Phoenix and Philadelphia, Ramona Shelburne has been kind of not whispering, but putting out like Phoenix as a landing spot for James Harden.
James Harden. Yeah.
How does that happen? How could you? Is that an Ayton trade? How do you get to that point?
Could that be Chris Paul goes back to the to the Sixers? You know, and he kind of becomes the guy there, right?
So like sign and trade Harden to the Suns?
Yeah, or Harden just opts in to next year.
That
goes
sense.
Right. You could do that because the sign and trade gets a little tricky for the Suns. But yeah, I mean, could that be the direction? Yeah, or could it? It's not going to be Ayton direct because that doesn't make any sense. But you know, a 3-team trade, where Ayton goes maybe to one of the cap space teams and then go. I mean, Detroit likes centers, right? Send them to Detroit. They love. They could use a 7th center on the roster. But yeah, no, I'm not. Let's see. I'm very curious, to see how that would come together. So I'm kind of want it to happen just to see the construction of it. I don't think it's going to be the way it goes. I think it's Houston or Philly, but
I agree.
But if Ramona's putting it out there's something to it. She doesn't just throw stuff against the wall for no reason.
I fear for Frank Vogel's sanity, a defense first head coach. If it's James Harden, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant, he's not the defender that he once was, but he's been a really good defender. But and Ayton is going out. He may just lose his mind with that team's defense. So anyway, I agree. I think that he goes Houston or Philly, but still, it's interesting to kind of keep in mind.
Yeah, let's get into the CP of it all because I don't know if we have any super chats about him. I know we've got those poured in, and we will get to all of them. But the Chris Paul, we recorded a show when it was that they were going to waive him. We came back around to it and or did not come back around to it because we did not do a show yesterday. But basically the news now is the Suns are going to work through stuff, which is the right way for the Suns. See if you can trade them first. A couple caveats there. Suns side, he counts as 15.8 million on their side. That's his guaranteed amount. For the team coming in, it's his full amount, the 30.8 million. That makes it really hard to make a trade happen. Now you could maybe mess around with his guarantee amount. That's certainly possible. They could guarantee him more to make a trade work on both sides. You could do something where you get him to push the guarantee date back because the team needs to be post the moratorium to open up cap space if that's the direction it wanted to go or something along those lines. But good on the Suns for saying, well, hold on, let's pump the brakes on, we're just straight waiving this guy and let's see what we can do. But my guess is none of the reports other than Woj saying maybe they could re-sign him, which then he kind of talked about that night on the finals. I think it was pregame on the finals stuff. That was still, even that seemed pretty lukewarm. So I think everybody is kind of leaning towards this is done. This is done, right? He's finished in Phoenix.
I think it's kind of funny. I think the cat's out of the bag because here's the problem, right? Like I think the Suns talked to Chris Paul. I think they said, hey, most likely we're going to be waiving you on June 28th. Chris Paul went, forget that. I don't want to be waived on June 28th and then have suddenly teams are scrambling trying to figure out if they can add me or not. Do this now. So let's put this out there. So there's a little bit more pressure. So teams know what's going on, all that kind of stuff. And so there's a little more pressure to get this done. And then the Suns went, whoa, wait. Because as soon as the cat's out of the bag, nobody's trading for him anymore, right? Everybody's going to say, well, I'll sign him to a veteran minimum as soon as you waive him. Why would I give you anything for him if you're just going to put him out there on the free agent market? And I don't know for sure that he'll sign for a vet minimum. Maybe it'll be more than that. Maybe it'll be the taxpayer, but I know there's some offset in there. Maybe it'll be a full mid-level. But he's not really going to get all of that money because of that offset with his son's contract. But still, I think this is Phoenix doing everything they can to try to walk it back and go, wait, let's just hold our horses and see if something happens. But look, as we all know, Minnesota just did this with Dalvin Cook, right? And guess what? There was no trade. They wound up waiving him. I still think that's where we wind up on June 28th. Chris Paul's just trying to get him to do it a little bit sooner because, of course, he would, because he wants more time to figure out where he wants to go. I also think if you're Chris Paul, you probably don't want to get traded. You'd rather be able to pick your next team and just get waived. So I think that's kind of what's going on here. But I think also we ultimately land where he just gets waived and he'll pick what his next team's going to be.
Yeah, I think this started probably with a, hey, if we waive you, will you take the minimum or slightly above it or whatever? With that, I think it's I think it's that's probably how that started. And Chris Paul was probably like, no, how about you don't do that and I just stay for 30.8 million. That is my guess where things maybe started to go kind of sideways on this one. With that, I think so we'll see, right? More to come. We've got 19 days until he'll hit his guarantee date. So something will happen between, I'm going to say between now and probably the draft and we'll get there. So, all right. Want to start diving into super chats? Because, man,
yeah, let's do this one. This one's a quick one. Do coaches' salaries affect cap space? And then what are y'all's favorite basketball podcasts? So, no, coaches' salaries do not
front
affect
office show.
Caps. Yes, my favorite basketball podcast is the NBA front office show. And you should tell all your friends about that show as well. It's a good one. I don't know, like Low Post, I listen to, of course, Windhorse podcast, Hoop Collective. I'll listen to that one. I listen to a lot of different ones depending on what's going on. Woj's podcast, the JJ Redick's Old Man and the Three. Those are just some of the ones off the top of my head. Mark Stein and Chris Haynes podcast. Those are some of the main ones that I listen to. Keith, do you have any that are different than what I just named?
Yeah, Dunked On for me.
Okay, sure.
Feels like it's the podcast that's made for me, because it's all the stuff I love most with this. But because I know people think of them talking just salary cap stuff, but they break down games. They do in-depth game breakdowns too. So I love that one. But yeah, I mean, I think you hit on all the other ones. The Low Post is always a favorite of mine. I'll tend to, in the other ones, I'll float in and out depending on who the guests are. Because I'm so interested in the salary cap, I'll listen to Bobby Marks on any podcast that he's on. Like, I'm gonna jump in and give that a listen. Like, he did a thing with I think it was him that was on the Ryan Russillo show there. So if Eric Pincus shows up on a podcast, I'm probably gonna listen because he does a lot of salary cap stuff. And really does a nice job breaking it down into very easily understandable things. So I like all that stuff.
Do you ever get sick of basketball? Like, and I mean, not obviously this is what we do, so it's not like you're just going, God, I'm just done with basketball. But you get a point where you're like, I need to listen to something else for a little bit. You hit that? I do.
Yeah, I do.
Every once in a while.
Yeah. What's your go-to when that happens?
Honestly, I go to fantasy football podcasts mostly.
Okay.
Which is interesting. I go to like fantasy footballers. I go to there's a Dynasty Nerds podcast that I'll listen to. There's a number of different ones that I like, but I'll go to fantasy football podcasts because I'm starting to, the thought process is the wheels are starting to spin as far as drafts this coming season and all that kind of stuff. But I also I'll just listen to music, right? Like that's the other thing that I'll go to is just straight music. So it's either it's a sports podcast no matter what, basically. I don't get into like the true crime stuff or anything like that. Or I'll just put on Spotify and I'll listen to music.
Yeah, I do music when I write. I can't listen to a podcast when I write because
that's hard
going on there. So I always listen to music when I write. There's always something going on. Every once in a while, I'll get into like I want to listen to it. Like recently, it's been, and I'm not sure why, but I listen to the Beastie Boys a lot when I've been writing. I'm not
really.
I love the Beastie Boys. They're like my all-time favorites, but not always the best to write to.
I was gonna say that would be hard to write to, I would think.
Yeah, it depends on like kind of what I'm doing, right? With that, if it's like a little more like I gotta really dial in, then I'll throw on the Headspace app. They have a bunch of different like focus music on there that I like. Podcasts that I like though, the Ringerverse podcast, love that. I never miss an episode of that one unless they're talking a topic that I truly don't have any interest in. Like not anything against the TV show Doctor Who, but like 40 plus seasons of a show, like I can't do.
Yeah,
like
you can't catch up.
Yeah, and like I just don't. That's not a thing I'm interested in. So I didn't listen to those ones, but I listen to anything when they're talking Marvel or Star Wars or any of that stuff. I do Fat Man Beyond, which is Kevin Smith and Mark Bernardin's podcast.
Oh, okay.
That's generally every week, where they talk about just all nerd stuff, right? It's a lot of the same stuff at the Ringerverse, but they're more talking news and stuff, and not like show and movie breakdowns. I'm all that. And then the other two, if I really need something, the WTF podcast with Mark Maron. Depending on who he's interviewing, if it's somebody I really am a fan of, I'll listen to it. He's got like thousands of episodes you can download and pull from. And then the stupidest thing I listen to, but is so much fun, is I listen to this podcast called Drunks and Dragons, which is a bunch of people get drunk and play Dungeons and Dragons. And it's absolutely as dumb as it sounds.
No idea this existed.
Yeah, and it is really funny. I really, really enjoy it. So
all right.
Yeah. So there we go. We went way out of bounds on that one. But
we did.
Hopefully we got your money worth.
That's all right. Here's another one though. It says, just want to say I love Keith. He needs some respect on his name. Buy a beer on me, Keith. Are you a beer drinker, Keith?
I don't drink at all, actually. No, I used to, but I don't anymore.
Okay, well,
and I'm trying not to drink my calories anymore. I'm trying to keep my calorie intake to food. I'm working on losing a little bit of weight. I'm down about 23 pounds, I think, at the beginning of this week. So yeah, so I'm working. I'm trying.
Well done.
Thanks.
Well done. Are you sticking with that at Summer League?
The working out or not drinking?
Not drinking.
Yeah. No, I'll stick with that straight through Summer League. Yeah, I have not had any alcohol in years. Probably. Definitely since before my daughter was born, and she just turned 13. So
we know who's driving.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, the Uber people. I'm not driving in Las Vegas.
We're gonna bring the Lakers Nation mobile out there, though.
Okay, there we
go. Syed said, "Thought only eliminated teams trade. Please explain." Well, we did just explain that, so we won't rehash it. But thank you for the super chat. Do appreciate that. Is AD a top 5 player? If not, what's your top 10?
It's funny that it's like, if he's not a top 5, you tell me you're top 10.
Yeah.
But you paid, so you're allowed to make demands.
I would think
top 5, no. But
I'd say top 10.
Top 10, yeah, probably.
I'd have to really sit down and make the list.
Yeah, and I don't want to do that on the fly.
Well,
we'll do that though. That'll be a summer show. After things slow down, we'll do a show where we kind of go through and rank our top 10 current players or whatever.
I think the problem for Anthony Davis is his offense was so kind of hit or miss. There was the roller coaster ride there,
Sure.
And that's what people expect out of like a top 10, top 5, whatever you want to call him, player is the offense. And so how good he was defensively got not totally overlooked or anything, but it doesn't seem to matter as much if you're a great defender as if you're a great offensive player in terms of where you are in people's minds for the rankings. So that's always something.
I'll ding him for availability reasons too.
Absolutely. For sure. You have to.
Huge one for me. Yeah. That's why I'd have Kawhi probably lower than some other people would. Because if you took those out of the mix, those two guys are probably right there for the top 5, and I wouldn't have either one of them in my top 5.
Here's a question coming from Lakers Nation. So Bruce Barnes said, Keith, in Trevor's last video on Lakers Nation, this was the one that posted the podcast that posted early this morning. I said, if either Brook Lopez or Kyrie Irving, this is not reality at all, said they'd sign for the mid-level, he'd give them a pen instantly. Which would you choose if both guys said I would sign for the mid-level?
I mean, Kyrie, because he's a far better player.
Sure.
Oddly enough, you can make a case that the Lakers would be better off with Brook Lopez because they have other guard options. And they don't really have another center option that's super realistic, and certainly not one at the level of Brook Lopez. But it's Kyrie. I mean, that'd be instantly the best. And I'm not even a huge Kyrie guy, and that'd be instantly the best contract in the NBA, and not even close.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was explaining why Kyrie to the Lakers is not very likely to happen because of the cap situation and the money he would cost. And I said, look, I get people messaging me all the time. Well, but if Kyrie took a pay cut and he was willing to play for $12 million, you're talking about $12 million instead of what, 45, 46 million?
Almost 47. Yeah.
It's easy for us to say that because in our minds, we're like, oh my gosh, that's more money than 99.9% of us are ever going to see, right? So it's easy for us to go, oh yeah, play for 12 million instead of 46 million or whatever it is. But that was where I made the point. Like if Kyrie said for an instant, okay, I'll play for the mid-level. Here's a pen. Lock the doors. No one let him out of this room. Sign this right now.
DeAndre Jordan
same
style,
thing,
right? You're putting
barricade
the chair in
the
front
door.
of the door.
And same thing for Brook Lopez. I have a lot of people saying, "Oh, just use your mid-level on Brook Lopez." Why would you not? Because I don't think he's signing for that. He was a defensive player of the year candidate. He made 13 last year. He's probably going to get a pay raise this next summer, or this summer, I should say. So. Yeah, again, if Brook Lopez said, hey, I'll come back to LA for a mid-level, here's a pen. Let's sign it right now. Right? I mean,
yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. I mean, it's just, I think it's kind of funny, when we look at it that way, you get into a spot where it becomes, with Kyrie, if anybody was ever going to take a 75% pay cut, which is effectively what he'd do over what he could make, I would, it would probably be him, but I don't think he's going to. And there's been a lot of subsequent reporting that has come out. I think Chris Haynes has been pretty on this part of the story. Is Kyrie's happy in Dallas and doesn't really want to leave Dallas. Now, I don't believe that happiness will last. Kyrie was happy in Boston. Kyrie was happy in Brooklyn. He was happy in Cleveland once upon a time, and none of those things lasted. So, it is what it is with that. But yeah.
All right. Mission 86 said, hi, can you estimate how many mid-size, young veteran, fair shooting, high IQ ball handlers are expected to be available this offseason for around 20 million? Trevor probably knows where I'm going with this.
I'm assuming this is a
D'Angelo Russell thing.
Double sign and trade kind of thing.
Yeah.
Let me pull up my free agent rankings. And if anybody wants to follow along, you can see over on Spot Track, all of our free agent rankings are updated. You can pick by position.
I'm going to put it up on the screen here for everybody so we can see it, because this is a fantastic tool. And I've been using this on a daily basis here.
Thanks.
So let me put that up right now, and we can kind of walk through this together.
Yeah.
All right. So here we go.
And then sort it to, if you haven't sorted, to guards.
To guards. And then do you go
all positions?
I usually, when I'm doing this, I usually filter out the restricted free agents. That's the way I do it. But let's leave it as is for right now.
And then if you these are okay, yeah, we're in the right free agents. And then if you sort by, we won't sort them that way by guards. It's going to sort them by position, but that's fine.
I can sort it by point guard if you'd rather. But
yeah, if you sort it by point guard, then it should auto sort by rank. There we go. This is the way I rank the point guards, and these are all me too, just in case anybody has a question of where I'm ranking them in this order on this. So, and a couple of these will get updated. We have not updated since the end of the regular season. So, let's see. All right. So Kyrie, no. Fred VanVleet, no. Beverly and Westbrook, we're not going to go there. So, I mean, that leaves you, Gabe Vincent, kind of
right.
Is, because everybody
the
else,
only other guy,
is below that level on this side. And somebody said it, Pat Bev at 4. So here's where I get to with Patrick Beverly. The tiers come first. He's a starter. He's been a starter for like a decade now. He still started last season with all the teams he was on. He was a starter. So that puts him ahead of the other guys because he's still a starting level guy. So that's just why. And I just
if you could have Gabe Vincent or Patrick Beverly, teams are taking Gabe Vincent, right?
Teams are taking Gabe Vincent, but Gabe Vincent is he'll move ahead of just when we do an update, which will come here in the next couple of days. He'll move up this list because now he has been a starting guy throughout the course of the end of the regular season and the playoffs. So he'll move up the list. He will end up being probably 4th behind D'Lo.
Okay. So
anyway, that's not answering the question that was asked. Gabe Vincent's the only one of this group, and he'll make far less than 20 million.
Yeah. So it's really just going to be D'Lo that's in that price range.
Yeah.
This summer, as far as
even in the shooting guard side, there's really not all that many.
It's not a very deep part of it. It's not just like, hey, why is D'Angelo Russell in this tier? It's not a super deep free agent class. That's part of it too here.
And Austin Reeves will move up on this list too. He's now third. So he'll get updated here, but he's not in the mix, right? Because he's already on the team. So for this one, you're kind of talking Karis LeVert, right?
Yeah.
That's probably it. Because Josh Hart, probably not. He doesn't fit the criteria, right? Because he's not a real ball handling playmaker kind of guy. And I think that was the question. Jordan Clarkson for sure. Fits that bill. Bruce Brown, kind of, sort of, kind of mixes all of those things that the question asked. But yeah, so it's hard, man. There's not a lot. I mean, if you're doing it, you're not doing it as a double sign and trade. It's going to be D'Lo, like, sign and trade it for someone who's already under contract. It would be my guess. And I don't think that's the way it's going to
go. Yeah, agreed. I'm just seeing Jake Fisher just put out a piece on the Chris Paul situation. I'm looking to see if there's anything interesting. He's got Terry Rozier as a Suns target. That the Suns already looking at backup.
That's been out there since the trade deadline.
Yeah, that's something that's been around for a while. But they're looking for other guards, but that their ideal outcome would be to bring back Chris Paul. But it's like you said, it seems like it's.
Was that? See Kevin O'Connor put the Spurs as a team.
I did.
Chris Paul.
That was interesting.
That's really interesting because they definitely need a point guard. They have Trey Jones as a restricted free agent. So that's going to be a really kind of a we'll see kind of situation there. So but yeah, man, I think that becomes really interesting to see where could they go with Chris Paul, because I think the idea there would be he helps Victor Wembanyama's transition, right? Because he's going to get him in the right spot and get him the ball and get him set up and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's here. Let me pull that.
Yeah, let's get back into it. You guys are coming with the super chats today.
Yeah. Oh, Damian Lillard. This one said Damian Lillard to the Bucks, Middleton to the Hawks, and Trey to the Blazers.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Who's saying no to that?
Would do that. I wouldn't. If I was the Hawks, I'd do more.
I wouldn't either.
Yeah. Especially now, found out Middleton had another surgery on his knee after the season.
Yeah.
That just came out. So, yeah, no, I'd skip that.
But the Hawks are one of the teams that are probably going to have to make some difficult decisions based on the new CBA.
Yeah, they've got way too much long-term salary locked up, and guys to sign, like Onyeka Okongwu is extension eligible this summer. So yeah, it's a real mess with that.
So are the Hawks in a situation where they believe Trae Young and DeJounte Murray were going to work together? Do they need to split those guys up?
I don't know. I mean, it didn't work terribly. Like they weren't an awful team, right? They still made it to the playoffs. I don't love it because Murray's not very good off the ball. Like that's my only challenge with that one. And Trae Young didn't adapt into playing off the ball, very well when they had him. So yeah, I think you're probably need to at least consider it. And Murray's another guy who he'll need to be re-signed next summer because there's no way he's doing an extension. Even the expanded extension rules don't work for him. It's not enough money. So yeah, I'd at least look at it. But the problem is you can't. It's a different front office that's in charge now, so they're not necessarily undoing their own mistake. But man, you just gave up all those first round picks to go get DeJounte Murray, So then, does it become Trae Young that you look at? I don't know. He's still a superstar, and when you have one, it's hard to give him up.
Ooh, Jake Fisher is mentioning the Suns trading Chris Paul to the Lakers for D'Angelo Russell.
Certainly possible. It's tight with Devin Booker. Remember that was
and said the Suns tried to get Russell from the Wolves prior to the deadline.
Yeah.
He is buddies with Devin Booker, and
that
the
was
Lakers
the other place he was going to go before he went to the Warriors. Right? It was the Suns or the other ones there. So yeah,
Lakers are said to be exploring similar sign and trade possibilities for Russell. For LA and Phoenix, losing Russell by free agency or waiving Paul would sacrifice a $30 million salary slot. that feels more precious when staring down a daunting new second tax apron. Decisions aren't ones to make on a whim. That's why Phoenix and Paul have begun discussing different alternatives. Okay, that's interesting, though. That's something that they are looking at potentially.
Yep.
Okay.
He also puts a thing in there about Peyton Pritchard being a guy who could be has several supporters in Phoenix's front office. So that's talk about a range.
Yeah, right.
We're all over the place. It's Terry Rozier and D'Angelo Russell and Peyton Pritchard, and I don't know. It's very, very, very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is why you don't just waive him, right? Like this is why you didn't get waived the other day, because you're going to look at all these options before you do something like that.
For sure. All right. Syed says, don't think LA attains Turner. How much is he worth? So Miles Turner, I don't think so. Look, and Turner, how much is he worth? He's worth more now that he signed a new deal. I mean, it's a really good contract, 21 million this year, 20 million next year, and that's it. It's a great deal. And I think he's worth a pretty healthy amount. I don't see the Lakers being able to, particularly because all we've heard is that, and I don't agree with this, but in the Lakers front office, there's reportedly some split decisions in terms of some seeing Turner as not a good fit next to Anthony Davis. And so if that's the case, you're probably not going to be willing to give up what Indiana wants. And Indiana hasn't exactly been the friendliest of teams with the Lakers in terms of trying to make deals. So you got to factor that in as well. And there's reason for it. I'm not trying to cast Indiana in a bad light. There's reason for it, but that's something to factor in as well.
Yeah, I mean, unless the Lakers are talking about both of those future first-round picks, I just don't know what else they would have to send the Pacers. I don't know if you saw Tyrese Halliburton was doing a little like Twitter Q&A today because he said, long trip, what questions do you have? And somebody said, hey, you said your goal was to do, make All-Star or whatever last year. You did. What's your goal next year? And he answered one-word answer, playoffs. So, they're, I don't think, I don't know that they're going to sell Tyrese Halliburton on, hey, we got a couple of guys after your, extension will even run out.
Yeah.
You happy with that? Like, let's go. So yeah, I think, I just don't think there's a match there.
Andrew said, can you explain the difference between non-bird rights, early bird rights, and bird rights? Well, it's years. That's the first part of it. How many years that the player has been with the team. Non-bird right. Well, Keith, I'll let you dive into it. This is your wheelhouse.
I was gonna
give me. Well, you could give a more succinct explanation than I could, but I mean, non-bird rights, you can pay up basically 120% of the previous year's salary. Now, I don't recall if that's changing in the new CBA.
It is not. And somebody said in there that they thought that changed. That did not. It's the extension rules that changed. But non-bird rights, 120%, you're right, of the prior salary. Non-bird rights are anybody coming off a 1-year contract. Early bird rights are 2 years with the same team. And it's, let me rephrase, it's not necessarily a 1-year contract. It's after one season with the same
playing
team.
For that team.
Because you could do 5 1-year contracts and accrue full bird rights that way. So non-bird rights coming off 1 year, 120% of the prior salary. Early bird rights get you after 2 years with the same team, 130% of the prior salary, or an amount over the average salary in the NBA that ends up being essentially a little bit of a bump over the mid-level exception. With that. And then bird rights are after you've been with the team for 3 years, you get full bird rights and you can be paid all the way up to the maximum on full bird rights. So that's the only place where that is different is a player coming off a rookie scale deal who's had their 4th year rookie scale option declined. They technically have full bird rights, but they are capped at the amount of the declined option. Anybody else is all the way up to the max if you have full bird rights.
All right. What's your best guess with trading pick 3 and Anthony Simons? So we know Damian Lillard wants the Blazers to make some win now moves. I think that it's going, and this is what he's been talking about, that if the Blazers don't trade the 3rd pick, there's another conversation that could be coming. I wonder what that does in terms of the 3rd pick is a tricky spot. Like, it's got value, there's no question. But if you're an opposing team and you're going to trade for 3, you want to know, is it Miller or is it Scoot? right? And you're not going to know that just yet. So figuring out what the value is may come down to what the team trading for that pick is looking for. If you're a team that's already set at point guard and you know it's Scoot that's going to be there, you're not going to be willing to give up nearly as much. So that's something to look at too with that third pick. But nonetheless, I ultimately think it's going to get moved. I just wonder if some of their leverage gets taken away by this knowledge that, hey, the Blazers, if they want to keep Dame and they want to keep him happy, they need to trade this pick.
Yeah, I think it's I'm with you. I think it is going to get traded. I don't think they're ready to move on from Dame. I don't think he really wants to get traded. I think it's going to be let's do this package and let's go get something. For this and let's build up around. Simons is a nice piece of salary matching in that trade because he is at 20 something million this year. I say it's almost like 22 million. So that's not like you're doing the third pick in a $7 million player, right? That gets traded 24 million actually for Simons. So you're definitely in a spot where you can do some stuff with him. And then you probably move into let's re-sign Jeremy Grant. We've got some other nice players already under contract, whoever we get here for this pick, and that's how we move things forward. I think that's definitely what we're going to see with Portland. No idea, right?
Yeah.
Just couldn't tell you.
Yeah, they're going to go after everybody and anybody that they can and hope that they can find a piece that's going to help them win right now. Mario asks, have you guys seen Across the Spider-Verse net yet? I have not.
I'm going to go further. I haven't even seen Into the Spider-Verse yet.
I haven't seen the whole thing. I saw part of it.
Yeah, I haven't seen either one. It's on my list for this summer. It's one of those things that it'll happen sometime in mid to late July. I just haven't seen it yet. And I know it's amazing. Both of them, just haven't seen it.
Yes. Rez asks, what's next for the Celtics? Brown trade?
I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be a Jalen Brown trade. We'll know on July 1st at midnight. They can offer him that supermax, and if he says no, then it has to be a trade consideration there. But I think it's I think it's probably far more likely what we see is he signs. I think if anybody is going to get traded, it will be Malcolm Brogdon. I think he is the guy who probably is most likely to get moved from the Celtics, and I don't even know how likely that is. It's super boring, but I will say this over and over again. It's always far more likely that there's no trade than a major trade. But I think, I don't think it's going to be a Jalen Brown trade.
Yeah, agreed. I don't think it's going to be either, again, with the exception of if Jalen Brown says, nope, not interested in that Supermax deal, then it becomes okay, well, you're on the trade block. Justin said, is there a sense for what the Thunder are doing this offseason? They have to dip into the well of resources and make a splash at some point. Looking at you, Jalen Brown, maybe keep up the great work. The Celtics aren't a team, though, that's going to ship off Jalen Brown for a ton of picks, and that's exactly what the Thunder have to offer is a bunch of picks. So it doesn't make sense from that perspective. But yeah, look, at some point, they're going to turn these picks into players and off they go. You do have to keep SGA happy. And so it wouldn't shock me if they made they're not going to throw caution to the wind and just throw everything into a player right now. But if they made a few win now moves this summer, wouldn't shock me at all.
Yeah, so what I said with the Thunder is they basically have one roster spot to fill this offseason, and I would be going all in and signing somebody, even if it's a big overpay. If they decided, Brook Lopez is our guy to let Chet Holmgren play the 4 and kind of let him learn from Lopez on how to be a floor spacing 5. I'd pay him $25 million. It's more than what he's worth, but I'd give it to him just because a 1 or 2 year overpay is not going to hurt you. I just don't think that's going to be how it plays out necessarily. I think they're going to go in a slightly different situation than that right now. So,
yeah, I do think the Thunder they've got a lot of possibilities, but they're also not a team that has to fast forward things too much. I think if the Thunder stand pat, they're going to be good next year. They're in the playoff mix firmly. Yeah. They're going to be an interesting team. if the right deal comes along to get a young player that can really fit with them, I could see them sacrificing some draft capital to do it. But they don't have to be in a hurry with anything. They're already on the right trajectory.
Yep. No reason to rush.
Gian Mercado, do you think the Warriors will part with either Poole or Kuminga or both? Well, when we look at the new CBA, the Warriors, the Clippers, clearly in the crosshairs for this new deal. And you look at it, given how restrictive this is going to be into the super tax, you look at a guy like Poole and you look at his contract and you have to wonder, does it behoove the Warriors now to just find a way to dump him? And can you even? That may become a necessity if they want to keep Clay, Steph, Draymond.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to have both of them on the roster very long. I think it will be one of the two. Kuminga, I would probably prioritize because he's younger and cheaper right now. And you don't know where his extension conversation will go. And it seems like he should, in theory, be the Draymond replacement at some day. I am not by any means saying he will be as good as Draymond Green is. That's not even remotely where I'm going. But we'll see with that. With Poole, yeah, I think a lot of the cap space teams could really use him. He's somebody that I think Detroit should be making a play for. I think he'd fit in wonderfully there because you could start him. They need some extra scoring. You can play him with Ivy and Cunningham both, and that's your goal is, can we get those guys around Ivy and Cunningham and make it work? And you definitely can. So I would go into that direction if I was them. But we'll see. I don't no guarantees that's how it would go. But I think Poole, good chance he's the one who kind of gets moved on from the Warriors.
Yeah, that could very well be the case. And I agree. If there's a way to hang on to a more cost-controlled guy like Kuminga, you probably should. But again, we had the news a couple weeks ago that Kuminga is going to be traveling around to all the open runs, trying to get teams to trade for him by pulling a Jimmy Butler and beating up on other NBA players in open runs. So we'll see what ultimately happens there. Syed said if Naz Reid is gone, so let's say he resigns with the Wolves, Plumlee stays with the Clippers. Yeah, the big market, like in the last few years, I felt like whatever, you don't need to spend on a center. There's so many guys out there that are all kind of about the same that whoever you get with the veteran minimum, it's just fine. You're not getting a guy where you're just saying, hey, this is our locked in starter. But in terms of a backup big to play 10 minutes or whatever, there were a lot of guys out there. I look at the depth of this year's free agent class, particularly at the center position. It's not a lot. And I'll pull it up here in just a second. There's not much to really look at. I think he's right. If Naz Reid is gone, if Plumlee's gone, what do you do?
Yeah, because all right. So if that's the level you're thinking is down there, that takes Lopez, Vooch, and Pirtle and Wood all off the board.
Right.
Because
you're not getting these guys for a mid-level, right? Except for maybe Wood. Christian Wood.
Yeah. The other three, you're definitely not.
Yeah.
Dwight Powell, maybe, right? Not terrible. The guy I like, he's barely on the screen there in the bottom. Drew Eubanks. I like Drew Eubanks, man. He can block shots. He rebounds. He doesn't try to do anything he can't do, which is pretty much dunk and lay the ball in. He just knows how to play. He's always kind of in the right spots. He'd be somebody I would take a look at because I assume this was for the Lakers. He's definitely somebody I would consider. Thomas Bryant, we kind of been there, done that. That didn't really work out twice. Andre Drummond, been there, done that.
What's going to happen? He's got over $3 million next season.
Yeah, there was reporting from Casey Johnson, who covers the Bulls, that he sounds like he's planning on opting in.
I figured he would.
So yeah, because that's just a little bit more than he'd get on a minimum. Jock Landale is a pretty good player. You could take a look at him. But then you're down into. These are all minimum level.
Blake Griffin, Xavier Tillman. So let me ask you: are there any of these guys that you would be willing to do? Like, let's say, draw a line at Naz Reid. So we're talking Dwight Powell, Thomas Bryant, Andre Drummond, Mike Muscala, Drew Eubanks, Jock Landale, Bismack Biyombo. Are there any of those guys you'd be willing to do more than a veteran minimum? We're talking like a biannual exception or something like that for any of these guys.
Yeah, I would on Eubanks. I really think he's pretty good. If you could even get him for, $4 million of your non-taxpayer. If you broke that up into a couple different players, Muscala too, but I think Boston's just going to pick up his team option. And we'll keep him. So I think that's the little bit of the challenge there with him. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, that's kind of it. I wouldn't be, jumping at giving a lot of those guys much more than that.
Yeah, it's really not a
Maybe
super
Chimezzi too. Yeah,
he's interesting.
Yeah, went to USC too, so semi-local connection.
Yeah. Well, and this is a good point here. Grape Ape said, there's a cartoon from way back in the day, said every team chat on every platform wants Naz Reid and thinks they can pay whatever they got, even though everyone wants him. Yeah, but the reason why everyone wants, part of it is I like Naz Reid. He's good. But part of the reason why everyone wants him, it's because of the center market, because you're looking at it going, okay, we can't afford, if all you have is a mid-level and you can't afford Brook Lopez, you can't afford Vucevic, right? You can't afford any of those guys. There isn't anybody else, right? It's Naz Reid, and nobody. A great year to be Naz Reid because you're going to have plenty of options, I think.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to be there, and then he can always go back to Minnesota and say, "You want to beat this? Because let's go if you do," because they have full bird rights on him, so they can kind of do whatever they want to do. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, yeah, he's in a great spot to make some stuff here. Hey, I want to go to a couple that were asked earlier because I think they're interesting. Mahalio Stojanovic asked, or Mihailo Stojanovic, I don't know. Sorry if I'm butchering your name. How much can Nuggets offer starting salary to Bruce Brown as 125% of the current deal, or did that change? That's what I was kind of referencing there. This was a while back, Trevor, so don't even bother trying to find it.
Sure.
It was it's 120% if he opts out, because it'll have his non-bird rates.
7 mil or somewhere.
Yeah, it's a little over 7 million that they can offer him. So probably not enough. Tam, the pessimist, always here hanging out. A random weird question. You guys have been here for a long time. Do you have your biggest news break moment in social media? Perhaps you guys being the first ones to report something. For me, I think it's definitely going to be the Andrew Wiggins extension last summer. That was I was the first one to get that he had extended out there. So I don't know that I'll probably ever top that, because mainly for me, it's not what I want to do. I report stuff, I get it, but I don't chase news, mostly because I like doing things like going to the movies and getting more than 2 hours of sleep at night, and going to my kids' soccer games sometimes out in the middle of nowhere with no cell reception and that sort of stuff. And the guys who they do this is what they do. I mean, they live and breathe it. You can get profiles that have been done on Woj and Shams and Adam Schefter in the NFL, and how they have multiple cell phones and extra batteries that they carry around and all sorts of stuff, and how they sleep for 2 to 4 hours a night, and it's just not what I want to do.
I don't know how they look human on TV, sleeping 2 to 4 hours a night. I would just be I would just look like a zombie all the time. But yeah, I've had a few things where I can't think of much that I've really broken in terms of news. There've been a few little things here and there, but nothing big, certainly. But there've been a lot of things where I've known about it or I've heard about it, but never to the point. I am always terrified of reporting something and then it turns out it's not correct. Something like that. And I'm not the person that's hearing something from 5 different people at the same time, where I could say, okay, all these people are saying the same thing and nobody else has said anything about it at this point. And I know that these 5 people all know it. That's where I would feel comfortable putting something out there. Instead, I'm hearing stuff from 1 or 2 people, and then it's kind of, well, do I really want to put this out there or not? And usually by then somebody's, one of the big news breakers has had something on it. So I don't tend to break a lot of news or anything like that, because, it's not really my thing, not really the world that I walk in. And like he said, there's pros and cons to it for sure. There's definitely a high demand for that kind of stuff, but it's just not really what I do.
And general rule is, unless you're getting it from the direct source.
Yes.
If you wanted to get it from if it's a general manager saying we are signing player X, or a player saying, I'm signing with this team, you need to get it from two sources, because otherwise it gets, super risky to report things without, really good, proper sourcing. And that's a big chunk of it with me too, with that. So, yeah. The other one I wanted to touch on was somebody had asked about players buying equity into the team in the new CBA. It's not into the team; it's into a fund that's like going to be kind of managed by the like it's you're buying equity to the NBA as a whole. Think of it that way. That's the better way. It's not good. So you're not going to see somebody sign for a minimum because then they got 8% equity in the team or anything like that. It's not like that, but major money making opportunities for players, and that's how you avoid the whole. Well, what if you trade them from that team? Then does that equity transfer, and how would that even work, and those sorts of things. So that's what it is. You're buying into a fund that is related to the team as a whole. With that one, and then last one I'll touch on, just because somebody said, "What can you report on Zion?" I don't know. I don't follow. I mean, that's TMZ level stuff. Yeah. That's got nothing to do with basketball for me. So I'm not gonna follow that with a huge amount of interest, other than sounds like he made some bad choices, and I don't think it's going to affect anything as far as his ability to play, but his life at home may not be as happy as he would like, from my understanding.
I got asked that question on the Lakers Nation podcast today, and I just said, look, you got to be so careful. You got to be so careful when you're in the public eye like that with all the decisions that you make, because stuff can be made public very, very easily. And then it puts you in a very difficult spot. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to like get into the weeds of everything that happened there or whatever. You can follow along on Twitter, I guess, but yeah.
Yeah, apparently you can follow along on Twitter for a very long time if you would like to. I think there was quite a few tweets about it, but yeah.
Mr. Easley said, "Happy Friday, guys. I don't know if you've talked about this or not, but what do you make of Dame stating he would love to play with the Heat? Why doesn't he just ask for a trade?" So Dame clarified, he named some teams, but that's not him saying, "Hey, I want to go to this team." He clarified and said, "My preference is to stay and win with the Blazers. That's what I want. That's what I want to do. If I were to get traded, then okay, I've got some teams I would prefer to go to, of course, but he wants to be a Portland Trailblazer. It's not like he's trying to angle his way to the Heat or whatever right now."
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I think he's basically saying, "Hey, here are some of the teams," and he threw a handful out there that are generally pretty good and well-run teams. But for the most part, I mean, anytime he's gotten deeper into it, he says he wants to stay with Portland. So, and then today I got all excited because it's one of my favorite stupid things. It's cryptic emoji season. He posted something with a bunch of cryptic emojis.
Did he?
So
nice.
I retweeted it. I think somebody took a screenshot of Instagram and then I retweeted it with cryptic emoji season. So
love it.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's that's always one of the fun, dumb parts of the off season. But yeah, somebody
I've been so tempted to just tweet out the eyeballs emoji at some point. Just
I love it,
but it's kind of mean.
I don't know that I've told the story on the live show, but I'll tell it here now. I might have during the trade deadline live show, but I was in the locker room. This was now, probably close to 5 years ago because it was pre-pandemic. It was in the Orlando visiting locker room. I will not say who the player was or the team, but the player said he was mentioned in trade rumors, and he went to his teammates. He said, "Hey, watch this," and all he tweeted was the eye emojis. And then they all sat there and laughed for like 5 minutes at all the crazy speculation that rolled in. Like literally absolutely cracked up laughing as hard as they could. So
that's what Miles Turner and Buddy Hield were reportedly doing, just following along on Twitter with all the rumors this past summer and laughing. Like I think they were on the team bus or something like that, and laughing about it. Like the players are aware of this stuff. They know it, Yep.
Hey, crypto.com not going to do business in the United States anymore. You might have a new name on your arena.
Oh, so can we just go back to Staples Center?
Yeah, right. Can you get the big stapler back on the roof?
Right. Is Staples Center returning? What would be the ideal? Would the best case scenario be go back to Staples Center, or is something else a better fit?
I mean, people are going to say name it after Kobe, right, or something like
Sure,
that.
the
But
Mamba Center or something
it's
like
probably
that.
just not going to happen because no organization's going to pass up free money for
Yeah.
putting a name on a building. Yeah, I mean, I just call it Staples Center because it just is. It's what it's going to be continue to be called, for a long time anyway. So,
Yeah, agreed. You know what would be cool is if a company came in and said, whoever it is, right? Let's say it's Staples, comes in and says, okay, we're going to name it the Mamba Center presented by Staples or something, or the
Yeah,
Kobe Center presented by,
sure.
you know what I mean? Like I think that would be a good way to, especially if it was, let's say it wasn't Staples, it was a new company coming in to kind of build equity with fans, would be to do something like that.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, you're right. That would be fun. It's funny. And now I can't even remember what it's called, but I saw this thing that was going on here in Orlando, and it was like, this is taking place at blah 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 stadium, and I was like, where the hell is that stadium? I don't even know where this is. And this is like in my where I live, and it's what UCF's football stadium is now called, which has gone through like 4 different names. It hasn't even been open that long. It opened like 15, 16 years ago, and it's had a whole bunch of different names. So that's
It's
yeah, I don't know.
confusing.
Did you see we may be getting the Jaguars here in Orlando for a couple years? It sounds like, because they're supposedly going to do a ton of renovations to their stadium up in Jacksonville. That's the cheapest ways for them to move. And if they do, it sounds like they're going to play some games at Camping World Stadium in Orlando. Citrus Bowl for the old heads in the room.
I know you've kind of distanced yourself from NFL over the last few years, but would you go if they were in your backyard?
I'd probably go to a game at least. Like it would have to be a later season game. Not going in like September and sitting out
Oh
there.
yeah.
Citrus Bowl's hot already. It's yeah, I would not go, to a game and just sit there and bake for hours in the sun. But yeah, later in the season, sure. Yeah, probably. So we'll see. Man, if the Patriots get DeAndre Hopkins, it's gonna pull me right back in.
Oh God!
It sounds like he's going to meet with him this week. So
please no.
Next couple days, so
and it's not even a Patriots thing. It's you don't have anyone to throw him the ball.
Yeah, sure. Mac Jones is fine.
Mac Jones can't throw him the ball. You got to give that man somebody that can really throw him the ball.
Just get him receivers. He'll be fine. Make it work.
He's great at contested catches, but still, my goodness.
Let's close on basketball. When is the draft? July 22nd. We're less than 2 weeks away.
No, June 22nd.
June 22nd. Sorry, yeah, June 22nd.
Even better.
Sorry, yeah, less than 2 weeks away.
Even better.
22nd. And just in case you don't know, we'll be live for the draft. Generally, we will do the entire first round, and then this year we'll do probably at least through the Celtics pick at the 35th pick. In the second round. That's what we did last year because the Lakers picked super high in the second round. We'll probably do the same. And then after that, it just gets to be too much. And we've got a million things to catch up on because, there. But we had a lot of fun. And we'll have Sean join us for, if not the entire thing, probably, a large chunk of it to hang out and, get into it, breaking down all the draft picks. And I think it's going to be a crazy night because I think you're going to see a lot of teams start the salary rebalancing process if we can there. So
yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to see a lot of movement on draft night. I'm really excited for it. I think you've got pretty much every first round pick aside from number 1 is theoretically in play to move. So there could be a lot going on draft night, a lot of trades, all kinds of stuff. I can't wait. I am beyond ready for it. It's going to be a blast, but
D.A. Baracus, did we miss it? So you said,
yeah, I put it up on the screen. Right, he didn't ask a question on it. That's why I didn't put it up there. But we do appreciate the super chat. Thank you.
I don't understand what this means. Is Sean gonna steal my girl? Is Sean a girl stealer?
There's a username for that comments on Lakers Nation all the time. That is Sean stole my girl or Sean steal your girl, Davis, or something that effect. Yeah, but anyway,
be careful. Don't let your girl watch the draft show. Then you might be in trouble.
All right, let's call it a show. We even went a little into overtime here, but appreciate all of you for joining us for Front Office Friday. This was a blast as usual. We've got the draft coming up right around the corner. All kinds of rumors are going to start flying. I made this point yesterday on Lakers Nation, said, look, what's going to happen is as soon as the finals end, the dam's going to burst and we're going to get tons and tons of rumors because that NBA doesn't like all that stuff getting out during the finals. We're going to start getting so much stuff is going to come out whenever the finals end. So things are going to pick up.
Trevor
as JR would say.
Diabrakis asked about, he said his question was about the offset on CP3's next contract. So yes, his contract does have it's weird. The NBA calls it set off instead of offset, but that's what it is. The big thing with that is you basically get half of whatever he signs for comes off of your books. So if he signs for 10 million, you're going to get 5 million, but it comes off your books after the season. So if he's 15.8 money in dead money on a team's books, signs for 10 million somewhere, the Suns will get $5 million off that number, but it comes off after next season. So they would not see any kind of cap relief for this coming year.
Yep. And so that's something to factor into.
Fine, again, I answered your question about the CBA and the equity. Guess you stepped away.
Yep. All right. Can you entice Kyrie to buy into it? It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, no.
All right.
Cover the new CBA. Kind of important. I mean, I think
we've been doing it for weeks.
For weeks now. So
we've been talking about it.
And we will continue to do that. So
we will. Yeah. We will indeed. All right, everybody.
Thanks,
Let's
everyone.
go enjoy the weekend. I will be live over on the Lakers Nation YouTube channel at 2:00 Pacific time. We'll have our Fun Friday episode of that show. So be on the lookout for that. You guys can come join and we'll talk some Lakers basketball there. But otherwise, have a fantastic weekend. Thank you guys for joining us here for Front Office Friday. Till next time. See ya and stay safe.